Hi guys, real quick, just to demonstrate one of the methods I've used when someone has lost something as small as maybe a ring off the edge of a dock. A lot of times they'll get on these docks and they'll jump right off, or they'll drop their keys as they're trying to tie up the boat. For example, we'll use this example. This concrete would be the dock, the green grass would be the water. 13, 14 feet down, it's pretty murky in some of our lakes and it gets stirred up pretty quickly. It could be cold in the wintertime, so they come to me asking for assistance with full dive equipment. We have seen some people use PVC pipe as a framework to lay out a grid. It's bulky and it probably very effective once you get it in the water. If you can get it transported out there, setup time could be a little different than the method I'm about to show. It is probably a lot more specific in covering a whole area. If you had a piece of rectangular PVC pipe that you sink to the bottom, you got multiple grids as some people have used. This method here is just using some dive weights. These are 2-pound traditional lead dive weights. We've taken some paracord and basically taken a loop, so we have an attachment point. Just tie a knot on the back side so it's secure, just enough of a loop there. It's easy to do when you have thick dive gloves on. Went to a marine chandlery, a supply shop, got some nice stainless steel clips. You're gonna invest a little money on that for stainless steel. Notice these aren't the real pointy type that you get out of a hardware store that could potentially snag your gloves, your neoprene dive gloves, dry suit, or any other type of dive equipment. This is nice and smooth, stuff that you would use on a yacht. You can basically clip that on real easy there, even one-handed. 2 pounds seems to be pretty sufficient. It's enough to keep it down, weighted. Went to the hardware store, you get electrical spool for electrical cord, and these spools generally have somewhere along the edge here, as you might be able to tell, they have these little triangles and they come out at a 90-degree point, so you could set it up and it wouldn't roll away. I've taken a hobby knife, X-Acto blade, and just trimmed that off and smoothed it out on that ridge and this ridge down here. Therefore, with neoprene dive gloves, once again, I don't want any sharp objects when I'm in a hurry, packing up gear and not paying as much attention to it. I just don't want any snag points. It's just all nice and smooth. We obviously selected a nice bright colored rope because the visibility is the main concern when you're in almost black waters or very, very silty waters when you're working with the detection equipment at the bottom. You want to be able to try to see that. The whole point here is the little white plastic PVC cap out there in the grass, for example. You wouldn't be able to tell where the ring was. That's just an example. Say that somebody jumped out there a little farther than, you never know. But anyway, point being is that would be the target. We kind of know probably the people a lot of times will be able to tell you where exactly along the dock they jumped in at. It was over at the corner at this angle or straight out. I was right off the edge of the boat, on the other side of the boat, or this side of the boat down below here. Basically, we're going to use this to make basically marker lanes. So with the 2-pound dive weight, and if I had both hands, I'm just doing this as illustration, so we'll see how this works. Usually with both hands free, without trying to make a video, you can fling out the line and you get a nice line there. Well, of course, the other issue is you got this rope all up, you got the milfoil, potentially the growth down below. So if you just give it a little bit of a tug, you would come down here, grab the line to secure it, because you want to connect the other dive weight on the dock side so you're not hooking it on and having it send all the way down like a ropes course, you know, so you don't want it to go way down there. So if we were to clip this on, and I'm going to do this one-handed, so bear with me, I would have both hands free with doing this typically, so it'd be a lot easier. There we go. So I'd have it clipped here, and with this hand, so you're like this with the configuration, you can just let line out until you reach the bottom, and you can always feel when that weight is not moving anymore, and then you can just take the slack up on this side and you get a nice tight line. Repeat the process for the other line over here, which we've already done. And so once you get that done like that, and you get in the water with your dive gear and you go down to the bottom, you can go ahead and secure this. A couple half hitches with both hands available, you could do this pretty quickly. Might even be able to do it here as an illustration. A couple loops around there, you can tie it off however you like. Basically the point being is now that you've got it taut and you've got this down here, it's not going to move around too much. You can do the same thing for the other side. then I would start the search pattern from the dock and just search back and forth between these lines, your lanes basically. You got your grid going here basically. Oh, boop, boop, boop. You found the item, you're good. You can take and tear it down. If you hadn't found the item, for example, and say it was over on the other side, you could get to the back end, flip around, and you basically got 1, 2, 3 search lanes, and that's pretty wide. Like I say, this is an application will work well when they kind of know what general area along the dock that they jumped in at, and you can go as far out as you need to. It's reasonable. Turn around, and you could basically turn around, switch, and then you might locate it on this side. And if you still didn't find it on that side, you could basically come around and you could do a search grid on the outer left side. And if you didn't find anything, then you could get out of the water and rethrow your lines or expand your search pattern as you would need to. As you can see in this video demonstration, these lines were just thrown for a demonstration for illustration purposes. Of course, whatever works best for your application based on the information provided by the person that has lost their items. You could make these lanes much larger, and as you can see, the blue search lines illustrated here on this photo, you could actually search to one line and then turn around and do another search out towards the other line, making it much wider, but you could still do a grid pattern back and forth between the lines to cover a much wider area. And then you could proceed to search the outside of each lines to the right and left, and see if you might be able to cover a larger area without having to reposition the lines as much. So that is another thing you want to keep in mind. That's what's worked for me. It's pretty easy. Before you hop out of the water, I would grab these 2 weights and bring them up, and then I would leave those out there just to keep the line taut. If it's silty, if it's just milfoil, it's not super rocky, you could probably pull those lines in without any snags happening. Of course, you're probably going to have enough air in your scuba gear and equipment just in case on your retrieval if you had big rocks and there was big gaps and the 2-pound weight got hung up in there somehow and you had to go out there and just recover your line. You could do so, but you can usually pull it through pretty easily, spool it back up. The big advantage of this type of system here, these are small. I don't have a pickup truck to haul a bunch of PVC pipe around. I have an Outback, Super Outback, and I completely load up the ass into that vehicle full of dive gear and a cart. Sometimes I have to go from a parking lot or parking area. I have to wheel in all my gear, which is up to a couple tanks sometimes, scuba tanks that are heavy, and you know, my metal detection gear, and I can throw these and clip them onto the side of my cart. It's like a dock cart basically, and you can take all that pretty quickly. One person can drag all that out to the dive site, to the search location for these type of applications. So it makes it kind of nice and convenient. If you guys have any other ideas on how to improve, anything you've done that might work for you a little bit better, or things that you see as potential issue or things to be concerned about, definitely throw them in the comments below. Love to have a nice healthy conversation and share different ideas. This is just one way that it has worked for me, and before, I've had a situation where they thought they went out to a certain angle and I just threw one line out there just so I had a reference point. I also dive with an electronic digital compass on my dive computer, so I actually take bearings and know that. The rope, of course, as any of you divers would know, just is so much easier to have something physical down at the bottom of a lake or you know, any type of water like that can get stirred up and silty, where you're not constantly looking at your dive computer trying to gauge when you're trying to run a metal detector and doing all this stuff and trying to make sure you don't get pointed off in the wrong direction. Next thing you know, you pop up and you come up over there when your intention was to come up over here, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just way off my line. I just wasted all that effort looking at that direction. I've thrown a single line out, and I would go out, detect one side, turn around, detect the other side, and find the, you know, I found rings that way too. So you can do a one line, 2 line. You could do multiple of these if you really wanted to. If you had a long stretch and the person was just certainly not too certain exactly where along the long area that he was, you could deploy quite a few of these. These dive weights are only 2 pounds a piece. You get a small little plastic Rubbermaid bucket, a tiny one. You can put the dive weights in there, or a bag. You can haul those pretty easily, and clips and all that hardware. Everything packages up pretty small and tight. Kind of nice to get that out there. You can stow it in the back of the vehicle easily. And that's what I've got. If you guys have any other suggestions, thoughts, or comments, I'd love to hear about them. Put them in the comments below. Always nice to do a little knowledge share, kind of learn from each other and hone our skills and come up with some new ideas potentially. Peace. This is Seattle Ring Hunter out in Seattle. If you've lost anything in the land or in the water in this great Northwest, give me a call at 206-618-8194, and I'll come out and do a search to see if we can recover your lost items of value. Thanks. Bye. If you've lost your ring or special item of value, please get in touch with me at theseattleringhunter.com as soon as possible so I can arrange to do a search for you.